welcome to Recruiter Flow's webinar. This time we have with us, I'll start with Recruiter Flow. We are an AI-first recruitment platform for recruiting agencies. We have an ATS, CRM, multi-channel sequences, automation, reporting, all rolled into one to make sure that you have your entire database at a single place and make your decisions for your recruitment and client acquisition easily. We have with us today, most of you would know us, a lot of you here are customers. So happy to have you over for another webinar. This time we have with us James Whitlock. He's the managing director for Think in Circles. They do marketing. They help recruiting agencies do marketing at both the ends. So at the client acquisition as well as at the candidate acquisition. So James, would you want to add? What is it that you're doing? And just introduce yourself.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Well, it's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. Welcome, everybody. So my name's James Whitlock. I'm the managing director of Think in Circles. And as kind of just heard, we're a marketing agency for the recruitment space. So we work directly and solely with recruitment agencies across the globe, helping them with all of their marketing needs from talent acquisition to client acquisition. I'm also the chairman of ARMA, which is the Association of Recruitment Marketing Agencies. I'm also a podcaster and occasional advisor to rec tech and recruitment agencies as well.
Awesome. We're very happy to have you with us today, James. I'm Kritika, folks. I lead marketing at Recruiter Flow. And with this, we're going to delve into this. Before we get started, quick question. There's a small poll for all of you. How many of you currently have a recruiting marketing budget for your agencies? Do you do marketing actively? You'll have the the poll in front of you right now. You just take a moment to fill it in. That'll just help us understand where to start and how to navigate further.
Okay, so we have the poll results, and 24% people say that they have a marketing budget, and 76% of people are saying that they do not have a marketing budget for their agencies.
Awesome. This is helpful. Thank you for joining in. Then I think it just shows a lot of conviction in the topic. I'm sure some of you are just contemplating, does it even make sense? And so I think we have the right person to answer all of that. And so with that, we'll just get started. What do you think is the importance of marketing, James?
So if we take the UK as an example, right, there is around about 33,000 recruitment agencies in the UK of all different sizes, from one-man businesses all the way up to hundreds upon hundreds of man businesses, but around about 33,000. So how do you stand out in that space? How do you differentiate yourself from your competitors? Because you will have competitors. I know every recruitment agency I speak to says they do it differently, and they're niched and particularly unique. Well, that's not always true. And the thing about marketing is it can help you stand out from the rest of those businesses, and you can kind of drill down into what does generally make you unique. What is your USP? How do you work differently from everybody else, and why clients should work with you potentially over your peers and your competitors? It also, with the kind of current kind of economic climates, it's becoming harder and harder for your clients to find the right talent. With talent changing, because of technology developments, there are talent shortages in certain areas. And so being able to kind of be at the point of interest when these candidates and clients need that specialist service that you provide, one of the things that can help you be in the right place at the right time is your marketing and your market position. So that's the kind of current landscape, right, of the bit of where you're all kind of working. And so why does it matter? Well, you've got kind of a couple of options here, right? You've got brand awareness, right? So this is making sure that your brand is top of mind when your clients and your candidates either are looking for a new role or are looking to hire, right? So being consistent with your marketing and having that marketing in place in the first place is going to put you a little just above everybody else, right? We've already seen that something like 80% of you don't have a marketing budget. That would, and I'm going to assume that some of you, that doesn't mean you're not doing any marketing, but you might well be doing it on your own. You might be doing a little bit on kind of LinkedIn, and we're going to kind of get around to kind of talking about some of these channels later on. But you're all probably trying to kind of struggle at this when actually what you really want to be doing is doing your day job and being great recruiters. So first off, that's brand awareness. That gets you in front. That means you're top of mind. It also allows you to build that credibility in the space that you're working in. And this is really one of the things that can make the difference between you and your peers. You know, you hear a lot of marketers talk about thought leadership and that kind of thing. Well, so this is where you're able to add value. And we know that this style of marketing works really well within recruitment. You know, a lot of clients are becoming a little kind of tired of that very transactional way that recruitment can be perceived of working. So if you can be perceived as being able to add value to your clients and you have credibility and build trust with your clients, then that's another thing that you can do within your marketing. And obviously there is the lead generation aspects of marketing, from being able to attract and become that magnet for new clients, as well as candidate attraction and drawing in those people to you. That's really why this matters in the first place, and really why you need to be taking this probably a little bit more seriously for those ones who probably don't have the marketing budget. It doesn't have to be massive. We can discuss I can answer questions at the end around what a marketing budget should look like and how much you should be spending depending on the size of your business. So I think that's a good opener, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's marketing, especially when you have, I think, a lot of competition and there's little scope, or maybe not enough. You'd still have scope of differentiation, but maybe it's not visible enough. So can you make it visible in other ways than just your offering? And I think,
well, you know, there's kind of levels to this, right? You know, I mean, you know, if we're working with businesses, there's all these kind of things around. Does your message stand out? Have you got the right kind of copy? Have you got the right kind of message that is going to resonate with your clients? You know, we always talk to our clients around, well, what's the problem that you solve? And within recruitment, you know, that there's all kinds of kind of variations of what you actually do. It isn't simply as your client has got a need for a role and you find someone to put them in that role. There's nuances within all of that, and there's specialities within recruitment agencies knowing their niche, kind of like, you know, particularly, you know, really, really targeted. So those are the kind of things you can kind of play into, and being able to shout about that and being able to kind of talk with some authority within that space is one of the things that really is going to make the difference. And so that is kind of one of the things that can really kind of just give you that little kind of nudge above some of your peers.
Yeah. So what we've done, folks, is that so James is gracious enough to say, I'll just extend session with two of the attendees here. So we'll Sagrika, who's helping us with this webinar, she'll just draw two names randomly at the end of the webinar, and James will have one-on-one sessions, 30-minute sessions with you to help you understand your marketing better. What is it? Where's the scope? Where is it that you can make a change today so that you can see the needle move in the short term, right? So, and maybe plan your long-term strategy, whatever is it that's important to you, really. So wait till the end for that one. And yeah, we'd be happy to make those introductions to James.
Yeah, brilliant. Two lucky winners get to spend half an hour one-to-one with me, or maybe not so lucky, I don't know.
I'm sure that's lucky. And so maybe let's start with the flywheel of marketing. James, how does marketing work? Like when you approach marketing, how would you want agency owners to think about it, operators to think about it?
Yeah. So this is kind of the strategy bit, right? And I think this is the bit that sometimes get missed with recruitment agencies. It is what can tend to happen if you're a recruitment agency, you jump right into the kind of the deep end with content marketing traditionally, and that's or social media marketing. So that's the stuff you might kind of articles you might write, blogs you might write, the stuff you put out onto LinkedIn. But there's a whole level above that, which is the strategy, which tends to sometimes get missed. And there's a couple of different kind of ways you can go about it. At Thinking Circles, we believe in what's called the flywheel strategy, and that's different to funnels and marketing funnels. The first kind of sales and marketing funnel was first created nearly 200 years ago, for when there was no such thing as the internet, when there was no such thing as job boards and AI, and so our feeling here is that the funnels are probably starting to kind of show their age, right? So we work with what's called the flywheel, and this is much more kind of relatable in a digital age, and it's all around basically getting someone into your ecosphere in the first place and not worrying too much around continually having to have arbitrary points along a funnel where you might only send them a case study when they get to consideration or when they get to this point. Once they're in your ecosystem, it doesn't really mind what those kind of touch points are, as long as they have a touch point with you. And that can be multiple points across multiple channels that in this day and age is much easier to track than it ever has been before. So you don't necessarily have to kind of get too worried about, we've had businesses where we have to embargo this kind of content until we've had the first call with them or something like that, right? Which is very structured funnels. Whereas what we want to do is we want to just get you into the ecosphere in the first place. So you still have very kind of similar elements around kind of, that there's awareness and consideration, decision, but actually they're all kind of blended together. And you just kind of, once you're in, you might have come in from a piece of content on social media, you might have come in from listening to a podcast, you might come in from a YouTube video or something like that. But we're in, these days we can tell what you've watched, when you've watched it, pretty much who you are, even if we don't have your kind of unique identifier. So if you're potentially if you're a candidate or a client for one of the agencies joining us today, we have the ability to kind of monitor and track all that stuff. And so once you're in that sphere, you could just kind of continue to spin around it, float around us. So we're like a planet, and these guys are like the kind of Saturn's rings kind of floating around us basically, and continually kind of dipping into and being fed more of this kind of content. So as I said, they might have come in from a YouTube video, but then they're starting to kind of, maybe eventually they'll get onto the email marketing list, and they get the email kind of newsletter, and they get updates on when the latest kind of research is coming out from you guys, that kind of thing. That's really the flywheel. That's what we kind of use as our kind of strategy. So that's quite basic, right? I mean, that's the kind of overarching how it works. Within that, there's all the still kind of channel, the different kind of social media channels, the type of campaigns you're going to run, the type of kind of educational content you're going to put out there, emails, webinars, case studies, all that stuff's still in there. But actually, it's a lot easier to do, and it's a lot easier to manage because you don't have to worry and embargo stuff until someone gets to a certain point. The other beauty of the flywheel is it actually overcomes the bit that usually gets missed with a funnel, which is the bit once someone's onboarded, once someone is a client, because actually doesn't really matter if they're a client, if they're not a client, you're still kind of producing this kind of content for them. They're still kind of in your ecosystem, and they're still being kept updated. That lead times probably have extended, and from 2 months to 3 months to however many months now. So as long as you can keep someone kind of you can keep your brand top of mind with all that content that's swirling around them, then that's really what you want to kind of get to. So it's kind of making sure that they're in the ecosystem, and then you can kind of manage it, track it, and start to feed them the right kind of content that they're interested in. So that's really how the flywheel works, as opposed to the funnel, which I think in this day and age is a much better way of trying to strategize your marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like at any given point in time, you'll maybe have 2 to 3% of folks in market. So you might think that, okay, I have these many businesses who could be my potential clients, but not everybody's going to be looking at the same time. So if you have a funnel, it's just very difficult to pinpoint where the need is, right? So even though we have all of these advanced tools now to get those intent signals, and a lot of folks here are advanced users of those tools, but everything said and done, it's just the fact that only so many people are going to be looking, and so you just have to stay top of the mind for when there's a need.
Yeah, and you only have so much effect over that process, right? Someone's going to decide, every recruiter will know you can't necessarily predict when a client's going to come to you and when they need how many kind of hires they want to use you for. So you just need to keep them in the loop, right? Need to keep your brand in front of them, need to make sure that the content that they've always liked is continually the stuff that they're still getting in front of them. And you're right, there is all kinds of tools out there that can help you that. But inadvertently, you're doing flywheel marketing at that point. You're doing that kind of circular process as opposed to a fixed funnel process, which is pretty much out of date.
Yeah, and how do you think it's different from using these tools? Is it just about increasing the TAM? That okay, all the people that I'm going to reach out to, maybe in my sales cycle, I'm able to reach out to maybe 20,000 folks, but through marketing, maybe I'm reaching out to 50,000. Like, is that the right way to think about it? Or is it that, okay, these 20,000, do I just make sure that I keep showing up to these? Like, it's also about increasing all the people that you're going to influence, or is it just about creating a better recall amongst the ones that are highly targeted?
Bit of both, right? Depending on the size of your business, depending on your marketing budget, depending on who's doing your marketing, will depend on how you can kind of tackle that kind of thing. If you've got a small budget, you don't have much kind of marketing kind of resource, double down on the stuff that you can do and do well. And if you've got a small database, rinse that database, right? The amount of recruitment agencies who never start, who continue looking outside of their database instead of looking in inwards is shocking, right? And I'm sure you guys talk about this all the time with your clients, is to interrogate your database first before you start spending money kind of externally, right? So one of the things, the little kind of tricks we will do usually with our new clients is what we call a waking the dead campaign. And it's going back and finding the people you haven't spoken to for a while in their own database and try and re-engage them. And I'm sure you guys have kind of got the data on this, but we definitely see if you've got like a 20,000 kind of database and you've only talked to 5,000 of them in the last kind of couple of years, then there's that 15,000 sitting there not doing much simply because you just don't have the time, resources, or you don't have the capacity or capability within your tool. But if you can go reach out to those people, I can almost guarantee you're going to pick up work, right? Because they just haven't heard from you for a while. Now imagine being able to do that constantly on an ongoing basis, right? You're keeping kind of in front of the people, and that's where your flywheel strategy comes in. That's where your ability as a smaller business is just kind of to key in to the business, without having to spend tons and tons of money. The other aspect is, you can do the kind of whole outreach piece, right? And try and become much more kind of engaged and influential through your kind of socials, etc. The problem with that is you're fighting against a lot of other people that are already out there doing all that kind of stuff. And if you haven't started it, the questions we always get asked is, well, how do I have an effect in such a big pond? If you're just, you just kind of got to keep at it and start and crack at it and not worry too much about what we might call the vanity metrics around engagements, views, likes, that kind of stuff, because that will kind of just pick up over time. So that's the outreach. So if you're a smaller business, is lock down what you've kind of got already in your database and try and just kind of market to them, try and kind of do a bit more of that, while again always doing a little bit of BD. If you've got a bit more kind of bit more of a budget, bit more resources, you're working with a business like Thinking Circles, then then you start to look outside of that, and you can do both basically.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Which brings me to the next question that is asked very often, which is, how do you figure your channels? Like when you're thinking strategy, it isn't, how do I translate it into action, right? So where do I find those people? How should I even start contemplating as an agency my potential outreach channels?
Yeah. So the thing to remember is that not all channels are built equally, right? There's going to be better places for your business to do that kind of outreach. Okay. If you just take social media, you've got, you've got your big kind of, you've got a handful of the really big kind of social networks that you might want to kind of look for with regards to lead generation. But then there's lots of different networks depending on where you are in the world, and depending on what industries you're in. It always amazes me that if you're in IT, if you're in kind of in technology, that as a recruitment agency, they haven't discovered places like Discord or Reddit and those kinds of places, right? That's full of developers, full of kind of gamers, full of the kind of people that and engineers and that kind of thing that you probably want to talk to, but it's full of them, right? They're not on the usual kind of channels. So why haven't been able to kind of figure out a way to engage with those spaces always kind of frustrates me. But that's just one example. So with social media, it's really important to do the research. And that actually comes down to wherever you're going to do with your kind of channels is go where your audience is. Okay. That could be LinkedIn, but you're fishing a very big pond with lots of other people basically when it comes to LinkedIn. And the problem with LinkedIn is that, as I'm sure as all the recruiters on here will know, that not everyone's there all the time, right? From a candidate perspective, they only really log on once they're looking for a job, right? Around that, they're not there at all. So make sure you are looking at the right kind of social channels, and think about it from, is this a channel that can be good for candidates? Is this a good channel that can be good for clients? If you're looking to increase the size of your teams as well, is this a good channel that's going to be good for employer branding and things like that as well? Beyond that, that's social media, right? Then you've kind of got things like SEO and content marketing, and that's what are we going to be putting onto our website? How are we going to draw people in to our website through those kinds of techniques? SEO, we do it, but there's a lot of kind of coverage on that. You pretty much know how it works. It's people starting on places like Google or Bing or somewhere like that, putting in their searches, and are you near the top? Are you being found for that kind of for those searches? In most cases, if they're just searching for jobs as a small recruitment agency, you've not got a chance basically to be on the first page. It just isn't going to happen. So you have to come at it from a slightly different angle, and you think, right, can I be known for some other kind of content? A good one in this one, a good thing to do, try and get known as, is for salary surveys. Lots of people are always searching for salary surveys. So if you can own the salary survey for your very specific niche, then I can almost guarantee that you're going to drive a lot of traffic to your website. So that's a great kind of content kind of marketing piece and web development piece. Email marketing obviously is another area. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of tools out there for email marketing, and I'm sure you've kind of all seen things around how to kind of build sequences and how to build campaigns. The one thing that we always suggest you do is don't do email marketing in isolation. Is make sure it's kind of combined with something else that goes on. So you've got a kind of an overall slightly what we might call omni-channel campaign. Email marketing on its own is great. It can be really good, can be really useful. But when it's combined with other things that you're talking about on the website, email marketing from perspective when you've written your salary survey and now you're pushing that out, and now the salary survey is being you're directing people from the email marketing to come look at the salary survey. You can be maybe capturing some of that data if you don't know who they are, if it's going out to a blind kind of email list. If you know who they are, you can kind of capture this as who's looked at it from within your database. That, again, is incredibly powerful. That almost instantaneously creates a warm lead. If you know that someone in your database who's been a previous client looks at this salary survey, you can then give them a call, and they're almost a warm lead. And that's a very powerful way to, but it doesn't work in isolation. And then you've kind of got paid advertising. Not necessarily, most paid advertising in recruitment usually means paying for job slots and on job boards and things like that. There's not many businesses that do a huge amount of things around like Google advertising, retargeting, that kind of thing. It works, but it needs to be done in conjunction with other things. I think someone's more 50% more likely to click on your organic listing if there's also a paid listing as well. So if they see 2 listings for your business on Google, so actually it makes more kind of sense to do that kind of thing if in combination. So when it comes to your content and your channel strategy, you just need to think, right, how can I, where are my audiences? Where am I going to get the best bang for my buck? And where do I need to combine little bits of things together so to make it feel like more of a campaign?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And these are the digital channels, and it could be offline channels as well. If you are an executive search agency, you're probably looking at just having, let's say, golf sessions with your target audience, and all of that is fair game, and all of that is BD or marketing, depends upon where they are in your funnel, really. If you already know them, if you're already working with them, it's probably business development for taking further down for, let's say, expansion or something. If you don't know them, or if you can get them to have their friends as well, and that's just a marketing play. So it's just about how do you play your cards.
So offline is really powerful these days as well, though, right? So I'm not going to drop too many kind of brands and other names, but there's a cool tool out there that you guys may work with. There's a business called Hire, who they anonymize kind of CVs, but they also have all got a tool in there where it will send a CV, a paper CV. You click on it and it will send a CV to someone, which just hasn't been done for years. No one's sent CVs to anybody for a very long time, right? But it's very popular simply because it's very different, right? It's almost guaranteed to get eyeballs on these kinds of things. So there's a use for offline marketing in that kind of those kinds of scenarios. I'm never really sure whether, kind of direct mail or print or anything like that is really kind of still effective in that sense. We wouldn't necessarily suggest our clients go down that route because I think it's just a bit of a waste of money. But most offline marketing may well be done through things like networking these days, right? And then the ability to then convert an offline kind of connection that you met someone at a networking event to an online connection, doing it through kind of connecting with them on LinkedIn, through the LinkedIn app and that kind of thing, and then following up with them and having a little process around that. I know the way that we work at Thinking Circles, if I meet someone at a networking event, I've got a thing that it will remind me then to follow up with them the next day just to say, nice to meet you, nothing too sales focused. But things like that kind of work really well. So, those kind of offline networking events, I'm a big fan of them. I'm kind of a member of lots of networks. I do a lot of that kind of networking. I think it works really well. I think getting people to see people actually in real life is always a bonus. And then kind of moving that to online is kind of the new way of doing it. So yeah, there's definitely room for offline, maybe not just sending flyers and things like that anymore. I think that's a bit of a waste of money.
Yeah, so even at Recruitflow, we see a lot of our customers, so what they do is they integrate a lot of these channels to Recruitflow. So whatever outreach they're doing, they have all of it in a single place. So it just becomes a very strong intent signal for them in a way, right? Yeah. So they might be using a lot of other tools as well, or let's say the sales or other processes. But because it's like one place where they have all signals, it's just very easy for them to filter those things out. And let's say if I am marketing and somebody else, there's another recruiter who's looking to hire for similar role, it just becomes very, very easy for them to find who are the ones who are most engaged. So
yes,
absolutely.
And you know what? It filters into this whole flywheel thing, right? You're not getting kind of caught up in doing things in a very regimented way. Just kind of like know the things that work. Marketing can be done to a certain extent, data driven these days as well, right? So if you know where things are working, you've got the kind of the data to show you that, double down in those areas. And those you might generally find that you actually picking up more and more clients from networking. That's the thing you do. But is there a way that you can do that better, right? So again, one of the things that we work with some of our clients is that we build them kind of follow-up packs or a follow-up strategy for someone, right? And this doesn't mean them being put into a sequence where they get an automated kind of LinkedIn message, because we know everybody kind of hates those kind of things. But genuinely stuff that is going to be of interest. Again, like the kind of salary survey added kind of, it might be a case study. It might be, for me, I might kind of clip this up and use this as an added value piece to some of our clients to say, look, James was on this, he was speaking about this. We know this is something you're kind of struggling with, those kinds of things. And kind of just figure out what that little kind of sequence of messages might mean, just to keep people kind of nudging along, and yes, you can automate it, but there's a level that you need to kind of a nice line you need to find, a fine line, I think.
Absolutely. And which brings me to the next thing, right? All of this, it still doesn't feel as grounded. So can we maybe come to some practical implementation, something that people can take home today?
Sure.
How
So
should they?
yeah, how should they go about? How should actually do this in actual kind of like? So there's a couple of stages you want to go through, right? And in I know with a lot of our kind of recruitment clients that there is your kind of audiences, but you could have made some assumptions around what those audiences don't want and don't want. So first off, define who those audiences are, right? And you can do this through the old-fashioned kind of personas. You can just note it on the back of into Google Docs. You can do anything, but just basically think about, right, who are the people that we actually want to talk to? And one of the best ways to go about doing this is look at who are the best people you're already working with. What is it that's kind of special, and the way that you work with those businesses and the people you work with at that business that make them special and make them the ideal client, and try and use that as their template for bringing on people of a similar style. Okay. And same with the candidates. So you can build personas, and this is like the personas, if you're not really sure, this is James, the marketing candidate, kind of persona A. James is kind of MD of an agency. He's always looking to kind of recruit new kind of marketeers into his business. He does this at weekends. He has this kind of personality. He also does this kind of stuff, and you basically can then tailor some of your marketing to resonate with that persona. That's one way of going about it, right? But it does mean you need to know who you need to talk to, right? And this could be specific people within a business. It could be a specific group of people within a business. Okay, so that's what you need to think about first, right? Next up is aligning marketing with the business goals. Something I'm adamant that always should be done with marketing. Marketing doesn't work alone. It doesn't work in isolation. It needs to be pushing in the same direction, right? So you'll understand where you want to be with your recruitment agencies. And that might be that you need to bring on X amount of clients per month. You need to have X amount of clients per quarter. You might be looking to exit. You might want to sell. So how does the marketing strategy get you there, right? You might need to grow your headcount, right? So how does the marketing help you to get your headcount to 20 by the end of the year? That kind of thing. So that's what you also need to do that. Understand, kind of go through your own kind of business mapping, your market mapping, and understand that, and then align the goals of your marketing to do exactly the same thing. So you're all pushing in the same direction. In some trendy quarters, it's called RevOps, right? Revenue operations, right? Everybody's pushing in the same direction. The other thing you need to think about is your messaging and your positioning, right? At Thinking Circles, we went through a process a couple of years ago of building out what's called a positioning statement. What do we do? Who do we do it for? Why do we do it? Right? Those are the kind of things to think about. Can you put that into a very kind of short paragraph that is unique to you, that almost you can use as a mantra within your business? It can change over time. It can be updated. But how do you if you were kind of stuck in an elevator, your elevator pitch, how would you describe your business to someone, right? You're not just going to tell them I run a recruitment agency. No. You're more than that. You're better than that. You've done a lot to get where you are. How do you sell that? How did you kind of sell that business to them? What does that position look like? So position yourself. That then feeds into all the other kind of style of content that you might create, i.e. what's called your messaging and your copy, right? Is it informal? Is it very kind of, is it professional? I know these are quite broad terms, and possibly the terms you chuck into ChatGPT when you're asking it to create you a blog. But it does make a difference, right? Yeah, on the way that you know, it aligns to the people that you want to talk to. So your messaging is really the kind of is where you want to get to, right? So you've got your audience, you know what your business goals are, you've got the right message to talk to those audiences. Next up, really, and we talked about it a little bit, is making sure that you're creating the right kind of content. Okay, so like the channels, content isn't created equal either, right? Some of you listening in today are going to be more. You're going to be fine doing stuff to camera. You're going to be fine doing webinars. You're going to be fine doing a podcast potentially, but you might actually. Some of you will probably be better copywriters. So go to your strengths, right? Do what you can do best and do the best you can, right? There's no point in trying to do everything, especially if you're a small business. You're just going to kind of get yourself lost, and there's a few kind of there's stuff to overcome if you're not confident on camera and you don't want to do that kind of thing. Then play to your strengths. So figure out the kind of content that you want to kind of put out there, and then find the right channels to put that content onto. Right. The obvious one is if you're doing anything that's kind of video based, then you've got tons and tons of different channels you can use it on. Most social media channels will take video. If you're much more kind of copywritten focus, you might want to start up a channel on Medium or something like that, right? Where you can kind of have much kind of a clearer voice. So that's the kind of that's the content, and that's a little bit around the kind of channels as well. Next up is technology. Okay, when it comes to technology, there's tons and tons of stuff out there to make your life easy when it comes to marketing. From simple social media schedulers, the likes of Hootsuite and Sprout Social, which you may or may not use already. You might be kind of using some of these. Those are the kind of things that are just going to make your life a bit easier. There's tons and tons of obviously kind of automation tools out there. Obviously, the guys at Recruitment have got some of that kind of built into it as well. But there's whatever when it comes to kind of tech, the thing I always talk about is what's the problem you're trying to solve. Figure that out first, then find out if it's a technology issue or if it's a process issue, if it's a resource issue. Figure that out before you start buying all kind of shiny new tools, because again, we see a lot of recruitment agencies kind of like magpies buying everything shiny, but they're not really knowing what to do with it. So figure out the problem first, then then find a technology. But in most cases with recruitment agencies, a good CRM, a good database is the key for any real sophisticated marketing. The amount of businesses that we work with that have got terrible old databases that aren't tagged correctly are just a nightmare to kind of work with, because that's where we start. So if we're doing these Waking the Dead campaigns, we haven't really got the data. It's very difficult to do. If you want to do stuff to kind of reach out to continually to your existing clients or to lapsed clients or to old clients, you want to break them down into location, break them down into different sectors that you work in. That's where that really kind of that's really kind of helpful. With regards to kind of marketing tools, again, depending on what you want to do, we've got some that we like, but we're kind of agnostic. There are some really kind of cool stuff out there. So if, for instance, if you're into video and you can record a lot of video, there's stuff like kind of Opus AI. If you're not used Opus, it takes a video, clips it up, makes it TikTok ready for you and things like that. If there's anything else you want to know, then feel free to kind of reach out, because I've got a head full of tools, but depending on what your situation, I'll kind of I can kind of hand some of those over to you. Then the last thing, really, and this is sound really, really easy these days. It can be done from simple as Google Analytics on your website, understanding how that works, from what's coming on from your social channels, from all your, from the click-through rates on your emails through to the open rates on your emails. All of this data can be gathered together now, and you can understand how well things aren't working. So getting your head around that is the kind of the key these days, and it's proof that businesses like ours are able to support businesses like yours because we've got the data to show it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, James. It was a lot of fun to have you over. I'm sure this was a very, very engaging session.